Hey, what's up, guys? This is Arkaden, and today we're talking about the PVE tier list of March and April 2020. So first things first, what is PVE? So PVE is player versus environment. So there are many things that fall into that category. Raid, Hell Raid, dungeons, normal story, side story, questing, all that kind of stuff is going to be your PvE content. Your Abyss is also another one of those things. The big considerations for this particular list were, number one, does a character have defense break? Defense break is a huge benefit to any PvE content in this game. So anything with the defense break naturally found itself higher on the list. Number two, does this character have the ability to do no debuffs on their S1? That sounds really weird because you'd think like, oh, you want more debuffs on the bosses because they won't do more, like they won't do certain damage. Yes, except that there are also many things in Abyss and in PvE content that require you to actually be able to control when you do and don't put your debuffs up. And so you want to be able to use your auto attack and not debuff things regularly to make sure that they stay within the form they need to and not like enrage at any point. Other things that are on the list that really make these characters valuable is how much damage do they do? Are they heavy damage dealers? Are they big AoE and single target healers? Are they a tank that can wear Aureus and that also has like the right kit that are going to make them more valuable or less valuable? So number one, we have Ken. Ken ends up being amazing for several different reasons. He scales everything off of his health. So having a lot of health, it makes him not just a great tank to put up front, but also he also does more damage that way, which is amazing because a lot of big tanky characters don't do a ton of damage. So the fact that he does a ton of damage, he has a defense break on both his S1 and his S2. And then on top of all of that, he also does a huge amount of damage on his S3. So Ken in general, very big win for your team and very worth pulling in your selective summoning, especially if you get him. Tamarin came out a while back. I remember meeting her on my team for so long. She is like the best healer across the game. If you need a single healer, you can team her up with Iseria, and now you've got enough enabled to be able to push her S3 and be able to just heal with that one character. And if you need just her and another healer, you can do that as well and not have the Iseria and still be fine. So Tamarin doesn't do any debuffs on her S1. Her S2 is a group heal, so she does an AoE heal. And then on her S3, she actually transforms. While she transforms into her idle form, it actually dispels all debuffs on your team. So she cleanses your entire team. Then her S1 and her S2 change. Her S1 now does AoE damage to the opposite team. And while it does the AoE damage, it strips buffs off of the opposing team. That's amazing. That's super good in and of itself. But now factor in that also on that S1, she also gets a dual attack, a forced dual attack with somebody else on the team. So she's getting an extra attack, which is super good. Her S2 will CR push the entire team 50% forward and will heal them all with an AoE heal, and it will give them all an attack buff. S tier character. So good to have. Lilius has an incredible kit. Lilius's S1 allows you to get dual attacks. Every time she attacks somebody will attack with her, which is amazing. Her S2 allows you to provoke if you ever need to taunt something very specifically to do damage to her, like right in those moments. She has a 2-turn provoke, and it gives her a shield, which is amazing. And then on S3, she will do AoE damage based on the highest attack person in her team, which usually in PvE, you're going to have at least one pretty decent attack person. So that S3 actually does pretty decent damage. And it also is a cleanse for your entire team. So it will cleanse off all debuffs on every member of your team. Luna is an amazing single target DPS. Her S3 will defense break, and it will allow you to do the same amount of damage against any color in the game too. It is not specific to her just being a water unit and only being able to do good damage to fire units or extra damage too. It will do that same amount to all colors. Her S1 does no debuff, which is really amazing, and it will decrease the turn cooldown on the S3. And then her S2 actually, depending on how many molas you put in, will actually increase her amount of just general crit hit chance that she has by 20% with no molas up to 30% with full molas. Very amazing single target damage. Definitely S tier. Lulika. Lulika's a mage that came out a little while ago, and she is amazing. She's so amazing. She has defense break on her S1. She has an S2 that adds defense buff and a barrier to the entire team. And then she has an S3 that is an AoE damaging ability that also has a chance to defense break all of the characters that get hit. Dizzy. Dizzy is S tier on all levels. When it comes to PvE, being able to control and keep up tons of debuffs to be able to mitigate a ton of damage makes it so that you don't need as much tank, you don't need as much heals, you can bring in more damage. She does damage, and it's all AoE damage. She's just super, super good across the board. She puts up 3 debuffs on her S3. She has the ability on her S2 to be able to do combat readiness push, and has also the ability to increase those debuffs by 1 turn. And on her S1, she has the chance to stun. Next, we have Angelic Montmorency. Angelic Montmorency is the first one on the list that is actually not a 5-star in general. Angelic Montmorency is only a 3-star. So the fact that she makes S tier as a 3-star means you need to do her specialty change immediately. She has the ability to put immunity on one person. If you burn that skill, it'll put immunity on your whole team. That same S3 that's doing that also is a big single target heal. Her S2 will dispel 1 debuff and then heal everybody. Back to the S3. The S3 also cleanses 2 buffs beforehand before actually putting up the immunity. And then the S1 has a chance to sleep. Honestly, sleep is okay for a debuff on an S1 because most bosses cannot be slept. Vildred. Vildred gets joked around as being like the game's dog walker, and to some degree he kind of is, but at the beginning of the game, having a character that can AoE and move through content very swiftly, Vildred is amazing. He does incredible damage, he has no debuffs, he does damage to 2 people on his S1. If he kills something, his S2 will proc, which will allow him to essentially attack again, but everybody. And then his S3 also attacks everybody. Once again, no debuffs. So all of this damage is just raw damage being hit. It's so valuable, so good, and very, very fast when you're trying to initially bring up a character that can AoE and get through a lot of early game PvE content. Charles. Charles is also S tier. Charles does a lot of different things that benefit his team, and he does a ton of damage. His S2 hits like a truck. His S1 can proc his S2 just by using it. So a lot of times you'll do the S1 damage, follow it by S2 damage. He has the ability on his S2 to strip buffs from the enemy, which is amazing. And then on his S3, he does AoE damage that enables his team with attack buff and then also gives himself defense buff. Kiris has so much use in honestly cheesing a lot of the mechanics of the game. She has the ability on her S3 to guarantee that her S1 will proc 1 to 3 or something in that range of poisons that will land on the target every single time afterwards. And that S3, when you use that, gives you an extra turn. So you always S3 into S1. Also, after that, the S2 has the ability to then hit the target and refresh those poisons 1 extra turn, which gives you even more chances to have more ticks of that poison going off. Kiris is your girl. She is super, super good. Definitely S tier when it comes to PvE. Next, we've got Arbiter Vildred. So we had Vildred that was the green character that was S tier. If you get Arbiter Vildred, don't even bother with the green tier version. Even though he is S tier, you don't even need to now. You may as well use those same molas and that same gear and put that on Arbiter Vildred. Because Arbiter Vildred does similar things, as in he also hits 2 targets with his S1. He also will hit everybody with his S3, except that his passive for his S2 makes it so that he actually will res when he dies and be allowed to immediately S3 again. He is super good, tons of damage. He does do debuffs. He does do a debuff of hit chance on his S3, but in general, an amazing, amazing champion. Spectre Tenebria. Spectre Tenebria definitely finds herself in the S tier because she has the ability to just nuke content right now. Between hitting something with the S3 being able to not be targeted once she does hit something, because she's not allowed to be hit until she's the last target standing, unless it's AoE damage. She doesn't end up getting attacked a lot of times, and she's able to then, once the S3 goes off, she's able to then hit 2 targets at a time with a very hard-hitting dark spell that also has a chance to poison targets. Absolutely an S tier damage dealer when it comes to PvE. Finally, in the S tier, we've got Champion Zerato, who has the ability to defense break on his S3. He has the ability to not be CC'd in and of himself, so he can't be slapped, can't be stunned, can't be any of those kinds of things. But he does have the ability, if you do get hit by any kind of debuffs, he has the ability to passively attack 2 targets and transfer those buffs, or debuffs rather, over to the enemy, and that's just a counter attack from him. So amazing character for being able to strip buffs off of him, or debuffs off of himself, and put them directly back onto the other people without ever having to put like any effort or any extra turns into it. Incredibly helpful against many different things in PvE. He ends up finding his place most of the time in hunts. Very amazing character. All right, now moving into the A tier, we're just going to kind of talk about a couple of these characters as we kind of go through, and why they're why they're valuable, and why they were more valuable than just being good, and where they kind of line up compared to the S tier. So number 1, Ravi. Ravi is similar to Ken in that she's very, very tanky. She has a lot of damage on ultimately in her kit. She's also very, very good at damage. Where she kind of falls flat in comparison is that she does not have a defense break, and stun is not always the most usable thing in PvE, but in general, Ravi, super great choice for being a frontliner, especially at the beginning of the game. Great character, tons of damage. Sirmia, another one of those amazing characters. Sirmia, you'll find her in a lot of one-shot compositions. You'll find her doing massive damage in certain abyss floors that have green targets to hit. In general, just a heavy-hitting champion because of her S2 giving her greater attack buff into an S3 that does a ton of damage. Lidica, also an amazing character. You'll find a lot of use for her once you hit abyss floors 80 through 90, particularly at the beginning. I believe the first couple of floors, just being able to control CR. She has a lot of push, she has a lot of pull, she has a lot of control of who gets to go first and when. She also has some debuffs that she gets to end up putting up. Very solid unit, especially for the Abyss. Achades has the ability to do a big team heal. She has the ability to cleanse the whole team, and she has the ability to put immunity on herself. But you'll find that especially when you're healing with just one healer, she falls a little bit flat there, because a lot of times you can't just heal your whole team every other turn. You sort of have to be more specific and be able to single target and spot heal different players depending on who gets targeted. Tywin, incredible character. You can use him for Wyvern, you can defense break with his S3, everything on the map, which is amazing, and he has the ability to put attack buff and crit buff on somebody, and CR boost that damage dealer that he puts that on. Lena, amazing dog walker, as well as just AoE damage, does a ton of AoE damage, which is amazing. Diane is also an amazing side healer. She's more of a side support healer, but being able to put a crit reduction buff on and then also attack buff makes her an enabler, on top of the fact that she has shields in her barrier and then also has a dispel in her S2 as well. Makes her a pretty well-rounded kit. Kisei, super good for Wyvern. Kisei being able to just crush through the Wyvern shield is amazing and very, very helpful when you're trying to get through Wyvern runs semi-fast, but more than anything, efficiently. Angelica used to be the healer. You wanted that healer before anything else, until Angelic Montmorency came into the game. 4-star character, still very amazing, has immunity for everybody on the team, has a large heal that also heals another one, so she'll heal one target and then it will also heal another target, and then her S3, while it also gives an immunity, it also does a large healed AoE to everybody as well. Euphine, she has a defense break on her S1. She has a AoE silence and damage that she does on her S2 that also gives her an attack buff, so she enables herself, which is pretty neat. And then her S3 does a ton of damage, especially to buffed units, and then it will also stun them at the end. So very, very high damage output. Bologna, she does so much damage because her damage is based on health of the targets she's hitting, so she does percentage damage. It's insane. She does insane amounts of damage single target with her S1. She also does defense break on her S3, and then between getting hit and between using attacks, she also can stack up and retaliate as well with another S3. So she has a heavy chance, especially with her new equipment, to actually keep up defense break consistently on whole teams all the time. Iseria, an amazing enabler for Tamarin, as well as just an amazing character on her own. On her S3, she will actually strip off the debuffs of the boss, or strip off the buffs rather, sorry, of the boss or whoever you're attacking with it, and then it will apply a defense break and unbuffable. On her S2, she can reset somebody's cooldown. So that's why she's really good with Tamarin, is because Tamarin has a 7 turn on her S3, and the S3 is what really enables Tamarin to really take advantage of all of her utilization. And then on her S1, she also has the ability, it's a single target ability, to defense break as well. Iseria is a very solid unit, especially when it comes to PvE. Destina S3 will strip all of the debuffs off of your team, so it'll cleanse everything, and then it will also put a big heal on all 4 characters. Her S2 increases the combat readiness of a target that she hits, so it'll boost a character forward and it will heal them. And then on her S1, she has the ability to also heal based on damage that she hits. Falconer Clury is a 3-star, amazing character. Used to be way broken for PvE. Now she's less broken because they added more turns to her S3, but the fact that she has a 2-turn defense break and provoke is amazing on the S3. She's usually built very fast, so she will cycle through her turns very quickly. Every time it's her turn, she actually ends up healing the party just a tiny bit, but it becomes noticeable when you realize how much she's actually attacking. And then her S1 does no extra debuffs, which is amazing for all of those bosses, again, that you don't want to be debuffing. So Falconer Clury, very good as well. Dark Corvus, incredible character. As we step into these MLs now and like these Moonlight summons, Dark Corvus is a very good one for PvE. Not S tier because honestly, other characters do a lot of this stuff like just sort of better. But if you needed a tank, a solid tank. If you needed a tank that can do damage, he also does a ton of damage and can nuke things off the face of the planet. He's just all around a good tank, and that's what makes him valuable and A tier for PvE. Shadow Rose, also going to be a really high up there tank as well. She has the ability to combat readiness push and pull. She has defense breaks. She's also generally a very fast tank. So the fact that she can get a lot of this stuff done quickly is amazing as well. Apocalypse Ravi, honestly, for PvE, she's just going to do a lot of standing there, eating damage, because she can, with her passive on her S2, that she just gets like healed every time she gets hit. As long as those hits don't like hurt that much, she really doesn't move. She does a lot more damage than she takes. And then on her S3, if anybody in your team dies, she has the ability to, as long as she kills on her S3, it will then res that person that was on your team, and then your healer can then in turn heal them back up. Commander Lorena is another 3-star, very incredible specialty change to go through. She does no debuffs at all. So very similar to Luna in the way that they play. They have like lots of huge damage on the S3, except that her S3 does not even a defense break. She's just pure damage. Finally, we actually start seeing some light characters showing up in this tier list, especially when it comes to PvE. We really don't have a lot of PvE light characters that actually work terribly well. So here's kind of where a lot of them are sitting right now. We have Silverblade Araminta, who does quite a bit of damage. Basically is and does what Araminta does, but kind of just does it better. She has a little bit more control. Her stuns are more consistent. Her burns are like equally good. Very good damage. Especially if you're needing an AoE character at the beginning and you just happen to show up with a Silverblade Araminta, she's good. She's got some value. She does debuff, so there's certain things she can't be used for, and there's certain things that can't be stunned. But in general, her damage is high enough that it's kind of okay anyway. So great character. Crimson Armin, amazing tank. I would say one of the better tanks in the game. Holds Arius like a champ, which is the artifact. She also reduces critical damage. Even after her nerf, she still reduces quite a bit of critical damage, so that's worth it. She gets a 2-turn immunity and invulnerability on her S3, and then her S1 has a chance to provoke. So all in all, Crimson Armin's kit is just incredibly well-rounded and a very worthwhile character to play. Maid Chloe, another amazing character, particularly for raid. She gives 3-turn attack and 3-turn res buff on her S3. Her S2 will heal whoever, when it's her turn, she will heal whoever has the lowest health, which is huge. And then her S1 has a chance to bonk, which is a chance to stun. The stun, again, is one of those things where it's not going to affect most bosses, and so it ends up being a totally fine debuff to have on the S1 as a PvE character. So Maid Chloe, amazingly good, and she camps so well. She camps so well when it comes to raid. That's where I think she ends up finding most of her value in PvE. Ruel of Light is a character who just in general has so much utility. She has the ability to cleanse a target's debuffs off and then give them a giant heal and a shield on her S2. She has heals on her S1 just by attacking, just like Destina does. And then her S3 actually reses somebody who dies. She gets to choose which character she wants to res, and that person comes back with 100% health and invincibility. Literally, it's ridiculous. Like literally, it has such an amazing place in PvE. Not quite to the point of S tier, but pretty darn close. She is a very, very, very amazing character, even in PvE and for other stuff too. So as we move into the B tier, honestly, B tier stuff is really long. As you can see, there's a lot of characters that kind of fall into that, like, I can do damage, or I can heal, or I can tank, and that's true. You can. You just don't do it as well as the people that are in S and A. Your kits aren't nearly as balanced. You may or may not have an S1 that has a debuff on it, and that's what screws up everything. But in general, you'll look through this list and you'll see a lot of these characters. If you ever see a character that has 3 stars next to them, it means that they need something else to sort of enable them. So for example, with Haste is pretty decent on his own, but like Haste does really, really well with other people that bleed, and also does really well with like a character like Biken, who you'll notice is also in the B tier. Once we finally hit the C tier, you're really, honestly, you're sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel, because there's plenty of like 4-star and 3-star characters that make at least B tier for this. And unless you're going to build one of the characters in C tier or D tier that just happens to do much, much better in PvP, then in general, I suggest just don't bother building them right now. The whole point of this tier list is basically to give you an idea of where's the power at, what's going to ultimately move my account forward, how am I going to beat this next thing that gives me these sky stones, or that gives me these bookmarks, or gives me these gold transmit stones that are going to allow me more pulls, that are going to give me more chances to get closer to those S tier and A tier characters for both PvE and PvP. So just be mindful of that as you're working through this. Finally, you'll notice that we do have a question mark tier. The people that exist in there right now are Charlotte and Little Queen Charlotte. Both of them just had a rework. Both of them potentially have a lot of good value. I would say Little Queen Charlotte at the moment may be one of the better ones, due to her damage to dark units, and we may end up seeing her doing some like one-shot combos for A11, or we may see her in some things. But as of right now, it's too early to tell, so we're leaving her in the question mark tier. And as far as Fire Charlotte goes, recently redone. I've seen a lot of comments around of people saying like, well, she doesn't seem like she's as good as she was before. To be honest, talking to a lot of high-level players, a lot of them are kind of like, they're on the fence. They're not sure if she's going to be one way or the other, and once they get a chance to, or once I get a chance to, and once we can kind of test that out, we'll get back to you on Charlotte by the next tier list. So there you go. So that's our PvE tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I know it was a blast making it, and it's been really fun going through a lot of the current content of PvE right now, being floors 91 through 100 in Abyss. Hopefully some more PvE content that's relevant will be coming out soon. But for all of you guys that may be new, I know this list is super, super beneficial and helpful as far as like, what characters do I need to be bringing up now that can take me through the content, that can catch me up. Especially if you're a new player, that ends up being a huge frustration. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. We'll be ever updating that spreadsheet, which there's going to be a link to that spreadsheet down underneath and in the description. So make sure you guys take a look at that. We will update that as new things come in. Also, if you do want to watch a video that kind of covers PvP tier listing, that'll be at the end of this video, as well as we did beat Abyss Floor 100 already. So for all of you that still need to get through that content will also be at the end of the video. Hope to catch you guys on the stream sometime, or maybe it'll be just next time on YouTube. Either way, have a great time, boys. Peace.
Yes! 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 Katie, you're the best! Oh! Yeah!
Woo! Let's go! Let's go! Yeah, baby!
Noise!
Okay. Katie, you just pulled me an ML5! Thank you, Katie.